Hello everyone and welcome back to the Little Quilter. Today we're going to be continuing work on the Northwest Quilt, and today I have finished these blocks right here. So there's a lot of them, and they turned out okay, right? So I know I talked with you guys about the concern for my strips and my strips not being exactly perfect. And I don't think that these are exactly perfect, but I'm hoping that in the overall scheme of things, it's going to look okay. It may not, I don't know. But these are the blocks that I completed. And so you can see there's just there's a smidge off on either side. But overall, I think it's okay. Now, I also don't think they're quite as square. Even though it's a triangle, I don't really know how. I don't think they're quite to size that they're supposed to be. Again, just a smidge. These may be very nitpicky things, but I've never done a quilt like this, so I'm a little bit nervous about it, in all honesty. You know, whenever you are just traditionally or diagonally sewing pieces together, I feel like I've done that so much, I kind of know where you can sort of fudge it and where you can't. But in this quilt, I don't know, and potentially having a little bit off may make the overall pattern, I don't know if it's going to make it super noticeable. Now, my hope with all quilting, my general guideline has always been that as long as you're consistently inconsistent, you're going to be fine. So hopefully that rule is going to play true to this quilt as well, but the only way to know is to keep going and find out. So I did do all of these, and some of them are better than others. I do feel like there were a couple in here that looked really, really good, but obviously, some of them are not 100% perfect. So neither am I, and that's okay. We've got this whole stack finally completed. I feel like it took me forever to get that done. So as you guys remember, this block was a section of this strip that I had done. So what I was left with for the rest of that square that I cut into 4 were these blocks here. Now, these blocks are going to be used for other parts in the quilt, and we're doing different things with them. I've already completed a little bit of it, and of course I will show you guys, but basically the next step in this is making essentially a flying geese triangle with this. Now, you may have noticed that in some of these, I had this little bitty white tip there. I think it was supposed to be maybe a little bit more, but in the instructions it does say it's okay if you lose this white tip. She would prefer you to have it, but if you don't have it, you don't have it. And for most of them, I don't have it. So I hope that again is going to be okay, but I do have the tip there. I think, so once I trimmed these to size, I am losing, I think once you do a 1/4 inch seam, you're going to lose some of that, right? It's going to blunt that whenever I sew it, and that just is what it is, but they're cut to size at least. So, we've got that to do. Now, I've got a few more to go, and then we're going to be able to start piecing those together, and we'll see where we're at. So let's go ahead and jump into that. All right, I have finished all of these. I believe there's 64 of them here, and most of them turned out okay. I do think there were a couple that are pretty short. This one was not one of the finer ones, barely getting that little tip in there that you can see. So, but 64 of these done, and that's great. Slowly, I feel like making progress with this quilt. The next step is going to be utilizing more of the same. So I'm going to be doing a different step with these to create another part of the quilt. And then I think that we're going to connect some of these pieces together, which is kind of exciting to do. So let me go ahead and jump into this part and we'll see what we get done. Okay, so the good news is that all of these are going to make the next block. So thankfully, I actually kind of looked through, because when I made these blocks, I initially was just going to like chain piece all of these to them, which would probably not have been the correct way to do that, and I probably would have messed up. So thankfully I looked back and realized that that you're not taking these and making them all like this. I mean, we kind of are, because we're going to cut these in half, so it might have worked out, but I'm not sure exactly, because that's not the way that she recommends doing this next step. So what we actually are going to have to do here is to take these and cut them in half, which just give me a little bit of pause for anxiety of like, oh, what if it's not right? You know, what if this isn't straight down the center? But we are going to trim them as well, and so that should be helpful. Now, the only other thing I've got to pay attention to is that, well, it should be fine. I'm sewing it long ways like this. So I don't think I can do it any other way. I was thinking, oh, I don't want to do it that way, but you can't. I think I will notice that that's wrong. I hope I would notice that's wrong. So I'm going to work on cutting a lot of these in half so that I can then sew a bunch of these together. So, and by a bunch, I mean this whole stack, I'm pretty sure. Okay, let's go. So this is the part that I've been working on, and this part has not been as daunting. Now, there's still a number of them to do, and this was the one side that I have actually completed, and because I made this with using half square triangles and sewing them together, I was able to cut some down, and that wasn't as bad. I still think, you know, there's like a smidge off on a few, and her big note was to try and save as much of this colored piece as possible. So whenever I was cutting those pieces down, I worked really, really hard to try and save as much of that as I could. So this this piece I believe is going to become like a border piece, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out, but you know, that's the whole quilting process. You make a piece and add on to it. So I'm going to keep working through this. I've got to do a whole nother side basically of these guys, so for one side, and then be able to sew all of those together, which will be super exciting to see such a large piece come together. And then, oh, sorry about that. I have a puppy who's trying to be in the view. So once I get all of those together, it'll be really exciting because I'll be able to see such a large piece come together of the quilt. And you know, that'll just be nice to see some of that progress, because I do feel like all of this has been very, very repetitive. And it's really interesting because I feel like normally, you know, having that repetitive chain sewing is kind of relaxing, but I think I've gotten used to all of the different pieces from, you know, Elizabeth Hartman and the Pas de Deux quilt and all of these things that I haven't done one with so much chain piecing in a while that it's almost a little bit tedious. And also, I'm just a little bit nervous about this one because of my issues with the last part. Do you want down, sir? What do you want? Are you just wanting to sit here? Okay. Yeah, I'm just nervous about all of these pieces coming together because I do feel like it's a lot of straight sewing and then cutting things down, and I don't know. So, but let's go ahead and continue on through this and see where we get. Okay, I finally have got all of these sewn together, and the next step is going to be putting a strip across the bottom. Now, I've already started on one, and I will say I did these seams here. You know, if you can see, I feel like it's not quite a quarter of an inch, so I did a slim quarter of an inch, which is what everything on the directions told me to do. But what I did whenever I put on the bottom strip, so basically what I'm seeing is that it's a little bit, my pieces are a little bit long, so you can see real bad on that side, this one. I didn't do as good a job. I've been trying to sort of even them out so that I have each, you know, a relatively same amount on either side. Let me see. Here's one. Maybe this one will be so there, and then doing like another little quarter inch. That one's a lot better. But obviously, I'm going to have to cut these down to where they'll be the right width. And I did check to make sure that my strip was in fact the right length, then it is in fact the right length. So that was just probably a piecing thing, either from, you know, putting these strips on, or maybe, you know, diagonal seams kind of stretching a little bit. I'm not sure. Hopefully it's not going to be a problem as we finish this quilt, as we put the rest of the quilt together. I do feel like for a quilt that like seems very complicated, but like in all actuality, the actual sewing component is a lot more of these like just straight lines and straight sewing and chain piecing. I feel like it has been one of the harder quilts for me. Now, maybe it's going to come together great, and I hope that it really does, but I do feel like it's been something that I thought would be so simple has been a lot more complicated, which is really interesting. So I don't know about you guys if you think that, or if you've ever done a quilt like this. Now, the other side of it is that it's really cool to see this come together. You know, you're sewing these, doing these very non-intricate quilting techniques. You know, no diagonal seams that are, you know, not marked, nothing like that. You're just doing sort of straight line, straight stitch quilting sewing, and, you know, cutting these pieces as directed and ending up with this wild design. You know, I mean, that's cool that it looks like that. You know, I hope that everything's going to line up like it's supposed to. So I've got to do the rest of these bottom pieces, and then I think there's another step for the border. So these are the border pieces, and there's quite a few of them. That's another challenge. You know, of course, this is a big quilt, and I do tend to like big quilts, but a lot of the quilts that I do, especially if you do sampler ones, again, you're doing like a different block every time, and this is very much the same thing over and over again, like 124 times, 164 times, 64 times. And so it's just a lot of repetitiveness, which is just a different pace. And I'm still nervous about how this quilt is going to come together, but I'm still crossing my fingers that it's going to work. So I'm going to keep working on these little strips and see how many I can get done. Okay, well, we've got all of these done and all of these to go, so maybe halfway-ish through it, but I'm going to keep working on this. You know, as always, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video and this update on the Northwest Quilt by Heck Yes Sew Company, and if you have any questions about it, leave them down below. I will also link the quilt design down below as well, so that if you're interested in purchasing this pattern, you can check it out. By the next time that I see you guys, hopefully we'll have made some more progress here. It is slow going, but some of it is just because there's so many to sew. And as always, I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time on The Little Quilter. Thanks.